You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of March 4, 2018, episode 70. From the still frozen city by the Sailor Sea, I am AJ Barsay.
And I'm the self-appointed Grand Master of the TGIF fan club. I'm Chris Powell. On this episode, AJ and I head up north for an adventure. We'll tell you all about it. All aboard, boys and girls. This is the Bellingham Podcast.
All aboard!
That's right. How's it going, AJ?
Good, Chris. How you doing?
Happy Friday as we're recording this.
Happy Friday. I feel like we've bonded this week. We have seen more of each other this week than probably any other week.
Yeah. It's a good thing that you and I actually genuinely like each other. Otherwise, this podcast would not have happened.
Right. And
nor this trip.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, I had an idea a couple weeks ago that I want to go on some adventures. And these are kind of controlled, safe adventures. But in this case, I wanted to full disclosure, I don't know Vancouver, BC that well. And I always get lost either getting to Vancouver, a destination there, or getting out of Vancouver to go back to my hometown here in Bellingham. And I'm like, what if I took the train from Bellingham in our lovely Fairhaven Amtrak station up to Vancouver and just saw what was around. So I took a look at Google Maps and thought, there's a couple sites I could get a bite to eat. And this is within a kilometer walking distance or something like that. And this seemed to be a good idea. Told AJ about it, and it's like, hey, we got a road trip going on. Except we weren't quite on the road, were we?
No, we were on the tracks. So we departed from Fairhaven, and what was cool about this is when you were telling me about this, I totally was like, hey, can I tag along? I totally just butted in. And what was the appealing part is you're like, dude, it's like $12, one way and $12 the other way.
$24 round trip.
$24 round trip. So what does $24 get you in travel? Well, let us tell you. So we departed Fairhaven, and it was great. I got some shots. I even did something I don't normally do, those Instagram stories, because I thought I would try something different. So sure. I did a little Instagram story of us on the train and stuff. And, it was cold as all get out, but it was somewhat nice. I mean, it was bright out. So I got, some nice video. You'll see for actually the cover art for this show is actually a shot from this cover is different because it's actually a movie shot. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see what I'm talking about. So anyway, you see shots of that, but I kind of wanted to get it all out of my system before we get to the border because I don't pay for international data or international anything.
Yeah, neither of us had a plan that would allow Canada and U.S., so we were kind of like, get it now while you can and then hit it in airplane mode.
Exactly. And so before we departed, I downloaded a tried and true app called Maps.me, which we ended up using for navigation. I think you downloaded Google Apps or Google Maps?
I did an offline download of the Vancouver area map in my Google Maps app on my iPhone. It was about 170 megabyte downloaded over wireless. Yep. And that pretty much gives me the paper fold out that you can never fold back in the same time. That gives me that view. However, getting from one place to another, there's what the heck? So continue, AJ.
Yeah. So we ended up using Maps.me, which the downside of Maps.me is because everything works offline, you can get directions and stuff. But the sad thing about this app is doing a search for something. If I put in paper, which we'll talk about in a sec, it won't find it. But if I put in 483 Johnson Street, I think was what it was, I could find that and put in directions, and we were off to the races. But definitely before you do any trip, remember when you're leaving the country, even Canada, a lot of us forget, that border is there. Once you cross that border, you better have international data or turn off your phone and do other things. But anyways, we got it out of our system. We were hitting the rails. And once we crossed the border, things kind of went from LTE speeds to 1x speeds. And I'm not talking about cell phone coverage, Chris.
As we're heading up north, things went south. So anyway, on this Amtrak, and by the way, the Amtrak Cascades is a very comfortable train.
The car itself is awesome.
The car that we were in, so as much as we're trying to avoid the negative that you could probably infer from where we're going, it was a very comfortable ride.
Yep.
Unlike an airplane fuselage where someone of my height and stature hates standing up.
Feel free to roam about the cabin.
I can't because I'm hitting my head on the ceiling. We had plenty of room, plenty of elbow room. It was great. It wasn't really a cramped train ride from Bellingham to Vancouver. But the problem is, boys and girls, when we're driving on interstate, whether it be Interstate 5 or Highway 99 or Highway 1, you've got multiple lanes for cars to change lanes and progress all together in multiple lines. Not so with train tracks.
In the United States and apparently Canada.
True. And what happens when you have those big, long shipping trains,
freight trains,
and passenger trains, and gravy trains, and John Cole trains, and what else do we have with like heavy duty CrossFit trains, all wanting to go on one track? Well, you kind of have to wait.
A lot. And
so unfortunately, for a day trip up to Vancouver, should you be thinking this would be a great way to get away from Bellingham for a day.
Which we thought it was cool.
Departs Fairhaven at 9:50 a.m. And then if you just do a day trip, the Vancouver Amtrak will depart Vancouver coming back home at 5:45. So we had about a 5-hour window to do stuff, to mess around.
Or so we thought.
Unfortunately, due to the power play that various train conductors have, we waited in our comfortable, climate-controlled Amtrak cab for about 2 hours. And so that kind of ramped up the...
But wait, there's more.
There's more?
Because on this awesome Cascades double-decker car it was very comfortable, their Wi-Fi service was unfortunately down. So even though we are sitting there stewing, we didn't even have the ability to connect to find out, like, when we were going to come in, or even, I don't know, do something on the internet to pass the time. So no, we are stewing in a very nice train car.
And we had to relate with ourselves outside of technology, which is just a horrible experience nowadays, isn't it, folks?
Absolutely.
But anyway, we made it through, and that was fine. So yeah, a 2-hour wait, sitting in, we got to watch Canada go by at very slow speeds. But once we got off that train and got through customs, we had a pretty good time. Yep. So it's about a kilometer and a half walk from the Pacific Central Station to Grandville Island. Now, I had a place in mind, and AJ alluded to it before. In getting in touch with my analog side, I wanted to see, is there a notebook place or a journal or a pen shop in the Lower Mainland? Well, there happened to be one about 1.5 clicks away from the Amtrak station. It's called Paper Ya, and it's in Grandville Island, which has, a metric ton of eateries and little shops and everything. Such a great experience. Most of you who are listening have been to Gradnville Island, but
we hadn't.
I'd been there one time in the past, but it was way in the past. And so just to take a look at this paper place, a shop dedicated to paper called Paper Ya. And it was just this wonderful environment, so many different types of journals, pens, writing materials, and different types of, to get your analog life on. And I thoroughly enjoyed myself in there. Props to Paper Ya and their cozy little store up there north of the border.
Yeah. And while you're also there, if you ever go to the Grandville Island, the one thing that I noticed is it's very much like what we call the historic Fairhaven. Like, it's very much art-centric. There was a lot of different venues there. I saw, like, they're putting on a performance of Once. There's also, I think, Cat and the Fiddle for, like, the children's theater. Really cool vibe, even on a very cold and drizzly day. I was impressed by Grandville and all the eateries and stuff. Like, it's if you're not familiar with it, like, once you're on the island, there's basically kind of two hubs that are almost like covered farmers market areas, but inside there's just a whole, like, vendor after vendor of stuff.
But one of the best sites was the Wall of Tea.
Oh my gosh.
Take this one.
So if you go, definitely hit up the Grandville Island Tea Company. Once you're there, you see this, I equate it to an old school apothecary. Yep. You see a wall with a rail ladder, like an old school book, like Belle and Beauty and the Beast as she's whisking around grabbing books. But instead of books on the shelves, there's tea canisters, and all of them are labeled.
About 10 rows high.
at least 10 rows high. And I don't know how many rows across. And they have a menu of sorts where you can go up to their bar and they have smelling samples. They had a chai on tap that was awesome to sample. The staff's really knowledgeable. Like if you don't know what you want, you can I like fruity stuff, and they can tell you where kind of to go. But while I was there, I was because I love tea. I love our Wonderland teas here in Bellingham. But there's a tea that I had been looking for years, literally years, called Monk's Blend. And lo and behold, they had it there. And so they had two different prices. You have price per 50 grams and price per, I think, 100 grams.
100 grams and 50 grams.
Yeah. So, and they're reasonably priced. I think it's like $5
or $10.
Yeah, $5 or $10
Canadian.
Yeah. Reasonably priced, and I've had my tea, and it was exactly what I was looking for. I think you got a lychee tea,
lychee jasmine tea. I really don't. I'm not a tea aficionado yet, but I went to the person there who obviously is an expert and deals with this all the time, and I go, I'm looking to get some kind of green tea that can help turbocharge my brain, or something that I cannot find in your typical grocery store. Something exotic. What do you got? And honestly, whatever the first recommendation they were going to give me sounds good. I trust their judgment because they don't look like they're going to sabotage me.
No.
So anyway, very friendly folks at the Grandville Island Tea Company. And they directed me to this canister called Lychee Jasmine. And, I smelled it, and it smelled just this wonderful, fruity, vanilla type smell. It was just calming. Not quite in the chamomile calming, but it was just a pleasant smell that I know that I want to drink this when I get home. So I threw down on a 100 gram bag, and it was just a great experience. When you're there, throw down. It was $10.
Yeah. And $10 well spent. They had some really eclectic stuff. They even had what is it? Matcha green tea, like from Japan and stuff. And they had both grades, because when I was in Japan, I learned that there's several different grades of that tea, and they had just normal, and they also had like creme de la creme premier. And you can also tell the price difference. But all kinds of paraphernalia for tea, and the tea itself. Great tea shop, dude.
So Grandville Island was kind of like, as AJ and I were talking about, how would we spend this 5-hour tour, this five-hour tour. That's right. I wanted to go to that notebook place, Paper Yacht. And I'm like, AJ, what do you feel like going to? And he knew from the Watch Fam.
Yeah.
Hi, Watch Fam. There is a location, a bit of a hole in the wall in dimensions, but an El Dorado type location in a area near Vancouver for this amazing watch business.
Yeah.
Please tell me more. Please help explain this better, because it was a heck of an experience.
Right. So I'd emailed James Stacy from the Grey NATO quite a while back when I was doing the DGR, and I was like, hey, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods. I got a couple hours of downtime. What horological places should I hit if I have some time after this ride? And he had mentioned Roldorf & Co. And I'd followed them on Instagram before, so I knew of them, but I didn't know where they were. And so he gave me the heads up that it is a little bit difficult to find if you're not familiar with the area.
And it was difficult to find, but...
Yeah, so once you find it, because it's in the towers, but it's down below. It's on Burrard Street, I think. And you have to go down, and there's this little mall underneath these towers. And so we finally find this place, and it's very small shop. Matter of fact, you thought we'd hit another dead end and tell them, hey, there's a Nomo sign.
That's right.
And so once you round the corner, you you go into this very small shop, and there's some Bremont watches over in a display case over on the left, and there is a big glass barricade, for lack of better terms, and behind that glass is a watchmaker and a watchmaker's bench where a very fine gentleman by the name of Jason Gallup comes out and greets us. And, we introduced ourselves and that we're watch schmucks and have a podcast and stuff. But what was cool is I kind of split off because I talked to Howie, who was the watchmaker working on a rig, because he was like, hey, come over here. And showed me this awesome old 1970s series Gallet that they just finished up and stuff. And he's telling me about the work, and I'm swapping stories about the watch that I had made. And I think you were talking to Jason at that point.
I chatted with Jason a little bit, just asking a little bit about the workflow, because I am ground beef, 85% fat free. When his knowledge of watches is Kobe, medium rare. And so I wanted to just learn a little bit more about, how things were, how was business. And then also I was noticing that I was keying on music in an establishment. Have you heard this, folks? Have you heard me talk about this? Yes, I think you have. I was listening to some really nice jazz music, and I didn't really want to make a dork of myself and asking, is that Dave Brubeck? Because I heard an alto sax. It sounded a lot like Paul Desmond. It might have been, but I realized, this is kind of how a surgeon will have their own music playlist while they're doing surgery. Well, Mr. Howie, behind the glass barricade, was heavy in deep focus work mode doing that. And I asked Mr. Jason about that, and he kind of told me about how you if you're under pressure, you may have something with a few more beats per minute, and when you're just kind of doing some exploratory work, you have a little bit down tempo jazz. I'm thinking, brilliant. What a great way to, and the lighting, of course, is very appropriate to highlight the glass and the shine of the watches and stuff, and everything is laid out nicely. And so I was just thinking from a way to maximize a minimal space. Yeah. And so my props for someone that is an auxiliary member of the watch fam, because I got the SKX 007, but I'm not of the know, if you will. And so I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Jason and Howie. Great guys, and it was a great experience.
Yeah. What's really cool about their shop that I had heard is, and I think I heard it from either the Grey NATO or maybe it was their podcast, but I'd heard somewhere that their shop is unique in the fact that they kind of like how we are with technology. We're kind of very transparent. We want to help people, and we're not like, ignore the man behind the curtain. You don't need to know how things are worked on. They're not like that.
Nope.
That's the reason why that glass barricade is there, is that you can see the man or woman who's working on your watch. They invited me right around and just let me take a look at what they were working on and stuff. And that's how they like to operate. If you bring in a piece to them, they're calling you, letting you know when it's getting worked on. Hey, you want to come by and take a look at it? They involve you in this. And that is really cool. It's something that we don't see in a lot of service industries because, a lot of people are very guarded with what they know, and because they want you to come back, because, you don't know. They kind of have the opposite. They want you to be involved with the process of them working on this piece. And that was just really refreshing to see.
And especially when you, from a business owner standpoint, when you see someone come in who has been out in the rain, and it was raining a lot.
Yeah, we were very soggy doggy.
We were walking kilometers in the rain, and having a black hooded Carhartt sweatshirt on and blue jeans that are kind of somewhat half soggy, and to come into a fine watch establishment and not know. That is what I would equate to the master blues guitarist taking a youngster and kind of showing him a couple chords.
Yeah.
And for an owner of an establishment to be able to hand me one of his personal collection of a beautiful timepiece.
The Braymont?
Yeah. And just to kind of tell a story behind it. I was really, it makes me have that much more of an affinity for a business like that. It convicts me as a technologist and as someone who has a great deal of knowledge to make sure that I am drawing people in that may not know a lot about tech to make sure they understand what's going on. Yeah. Can you hear me, customer service professionals out there? I think you can. And so tip of the hat to Jason and Howie for their kindness and helping make our voyage up north really enjoyable and memorable.
Yeah. And the offer stands, gentlemen. If you are listening to our show on podcast or on Bellingham's very own Camry 102.3 FM.
Low power.
Community radio here in the heart of the city of subdued excitement. You guys have an open offer to come down and we'll show you our town and talk horology as well.
And if you happen to like a microbrew, there happens to be a new joint that Aslan opened up just recently.
I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, Aslan Depot. It's in the Union Building off of State Street. But anyway, that's yet another opportunity to get your drank on. So first pints on us, guys.
So speaking of local, that's a fairly good dovetail. In a weekend or two, is there something going on in Fairhaven, Chris?
Well, actually, so this will probably be during the week of March 3rd and 4th, where this will hit your podcast feeds. March 5th through 11th is Fairhaven Food Fest 2018. And so pretty much the Fairhaven hood, if you will, is all the area restaurants are going to have an opportunity for you, the dining public, to dine at their establishments. And what they're going to do during this March 5th through 11th is they're going to give you a coaster passport. And if you visit 3 or get 3+ stamps or 3 or more stamps on your coaster passport, you can submit that for a drawing for a $100 gift card for a participating restaurant in the Fairhaven area. And name it, OVN, Magdalena's Creus.
That's what I was thinking.
Colophon. I was looking down the list and I'm like, yep, they're all in Fairhaven. So
Cool.
If you dig Fairhaven and if you dig dining out, well, here's an opportunity to enjoy a little bit of what we got over there in the fair.
Cool. Is there like a cover per head or type of thing?
I don't think so. I think it's just more of a promotion for the Fairhaven area restaurants, to attract some additional business before the real huge summer season hits.
Yeah.
But hey, a $100 gift card to your favorite participating area restaurant in Fairhaven might not be that bad a reason to get out there.
Woohoo!
So
moving away from local and travel, Chris, you and I had a little something that we haven't had happen in a while. We had some tech that caught our eye.
Dun 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 dun. Tech that caught our eye.
Yeah. So in today's day and age, we were just talking about traveling, and we had our smartphones with us. There's another subset of people who are looking at their dependency, something that we hit on the doldrums here on the Bellingham Podcast several times, being too dependent on our technology. And a little company called Lightphone, who made a very simple white chiclet-style phone a couple years back with lighted buttons. It basically had one function. It made phone calls, and it showed you, I think, the time. Made a lot of waves, especially with people who were trying to have a secondary device that would untether them from their Horkin smartphone. Well, you sent me a brand new Indiegogo, I think.
There is an independent quasi Kickstarter, Indiegogo. The Lightphone folks have come out with a second version of their phone, which came out in 2015, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah, every couple of years you got to do a refresh.
Yeah.
That's understandable. So this Lightphone, and we got a link to it in the show notes, as far as what you can do with it, where not only can you make your phone calls, but also text message. And I like the fact it's got an alarm in there to wake you up.
Well, one of the things that they mentioned is they wanted to rethink what we call a mobile operating system, which is a very bold statement because when you look at their device, it is either in black, Chris Powell approved, or white, which is what their first one was.
There is no other color but black.
Black is a
How
shade.
many times do I have to tell you this?
So it comes in black and white. And what's cool about this version is they went e-ink, and that is I have a big heart for any company that uses e-ink in their technology. But what's cool is it's got a matte display, so no shine, supposedly in daylight. It gives you an alarm function, turn-by-turn directions, which you and I both kind of raised an eyebrow of how's that going to work. It does have Wi-Fi connectivity, apparently, Bluetooth, all the standard, chip stuff.
4G, wireless, and GPS are included all on a sesame seed bun.
Yeah, and this thing is, I think, maybe, I don't know, half the height of an iPhone 6.
Stack 3 credit cards together, maybe 4 credit cards.
Yeah.
Take a look at that width. That's about the thickness of a light phone.
Yeah, and I think it's about a little bit taller than a deck of cards.
Yeah.
So to kind of get that in your mind if you're not familiar with it, but you can turn it sideways, and you get a keyboard so that you can do texting, which is a nice feature because the first one didn't have that. And what was the other function? I think I'm missing one.
Destinations or directions.
Nah, they covered.
They alluded to some music.
That's it, music.
Yeah.
And no, they called it and putting on a playlist, which is interesting because I don't think it has that much local storage. So is that streaming? Don't know.
So here's the thing, though. On Indiegogo, where they have this set up right now, they were asking for a paltry $250,000. And at the time
of this recording.
At the time of this recording, days later, it's over $450,000. But the thing is, $250 for an early adopter to get yourself a Lightphone. And now this is coming out in 2019.
Right.
So
remember, all Kickstarter.
Disclaimer.
Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Remember that these are crowdsourcing platforms and not necessarily a store. So buyer beware. But Yeah, it's going to come out in about a year, it sounds like.
About a year, but the demand for it has been beyond what they wanted. And the full price, once this early bird time frame is over, it's going to be $400. So first of all, $400 for a phone that's essential and minimal. Those are two of my favorite words. And
in
black.
black.
What an amazing opportunity to take a hard look at what are you using your phone for. And I'm taking a hard look at being one of these early adopters. Whether or not I throw down, that remains to be seen. But I was very impressed with where they are taking taking a step back and looking at what do we use our phone for? What do we need it for? And oh, by the way, you're probably carrying another device with you that would allow you to take some pictures or do whatever you would need to in your backpack already. Yeah. So it's definitely worth a look for the light phone.
Yeah.
So AJ, as we're wrapping up episode 70, God
70!
help it. Oh, wow. We've hit number 70, folks. What are you working on with some of your content creation aspirations?
Well, right now I'm in the middle of trying to consolidate, much like you did, consolidate a little bit of the web real estate that I've got. Thinking about redesigning my website again. I know I roll because I do it every 6 months or so. Anyway, I'm looking at maybe jumping platforms and rebuilding from scratch, kind of revisiting the whole concept of what I'm doing in my photography and the story aspect and stuff. Bridging a little bit more of what I do on Patreon and making it a little bit more public.
You know, you should take pride in what you're doing, or, shed no tears in talking about what you're doing and revamping your website and such, because I remember many stand-up comedians in the 70s and 80s that would talk about their parents and how they would take a room and they would put paneling over the paneling and they remodel something in their home. Well, this is your digital home.
Yeah, pretty much.
And as technologists, we're in the 21st century. We redesign stuff. We're rewiring our car.
Yeah.
We're rewiring things, because it's fun. We know what to do, and it's a way to breathe new life into something that we're doing.
Yeah.
That's out there.
So I'm working on that and also trying to dovetail more of the analog photography side of things. Took a couple shots when we were up in Vancouver.
Yep. Not
near as many as I wanted because it was cold and rainy. But you can look for that on Patreon, patreon.com/AJ Barcet and AJBarcet.com and stuff. Chris, what are you working on? I got a very weighty, quiet conversation from you this morning.
Yeah, so I send this little newsletter out, and it really isn't news per se, but it's just more like I've got a topic that I've been chewing on, and I just wanted to share it. And this week marks an anniversary of my father's passing. And, if you talk about wanting to have a genuine, transparent being online, if you really want to go there, I'm going to go there. And I'm going to test the waters. And here's what happened, that it was a really personal event and a very emotionally sad event for me. And I wrote about it. And it's not one of these things that are going to get hundreds of thousands of claps on Medium. It's not going to get liked by thousands of people on Facebook and go viral or whatever. But you know what? It mattered to me. And I just wanted to share it with the wonderful people that happen to sign up for my newsletter. If you want to, there's a link in our show notes for bit.ly/quietchris. But I'm trying to do these little conversations, even though they may be one-sided, but just share a little bit and really explore what it's like to live a genuine, transparent life.
And you got some, because you released it early this morning, and I know I wrote you.
Yeah.
And you pinged me back and even said that you'd had a few responses.
There's been some response, like along the lines of the Watch Fam, that will really give you kudos for taking good quality pictures and having these devices, and you're part of the family. There are some people that support just with a few kind words, and that's all that I care for. I don't want save your money, save your sponsorship deals. I just say, hey, that was pretty cool. Yeah. And that's good enough for me. So anyway, I like the quiet conversations. I like renovating my website. I'm getting into doing some more content as far as technology articles and things like that, because technology needs to be shared. and our knowledge about it needs to be shared. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Cool. Well, that wraps it up for this 70th edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us on Google, iTunes, Spreaker, and anywhere else you like to listen to us, including Chris's favorite,
Tune in radio, y'all.
Tune In Radio. Remember, if you're in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us terrestrially on KMRE 102.3 FM.
Low power
Community radio here in the heart of the city of subdued excitement. And on that note, safe travels, everyone. I'm AJ Barsay.
And marching forth with the rest of y'all, I am Chris Powell. Thanks again for joining us on the Bellingham Podcast.
So March 4th, then we've got May the 4th be with you.
Yes, I won't be doing that.
You don't remember that one?
No, I don't want to do it.
Okay, fine.